Don't click. Hey! Over here! Behind you!
Look, you're being watched. This is not a drill.
Someone's been following your activity.
When someone you love tells you they have a terminal illness, your whole world stops and you immediately shift into caretaker mode, ready to do whatever it takes to support them through the hardest battle of their life. But what happens when you discover that illness was completely fabricated and the person you've been caring for has been lying to you and everyone else for months just to get attention and sympathy? That's exactly what happened to me, and I'm still trying to process the absolute devastation of that betrayal. So I'm a 29-year-old guy, and I'd been dating my girlfriend Ashley for about a year and a half when she told me she had cancer. And I want to give you the full context of how this all unfolded because it's honestly one of the most elaborate and disturbing lies I've ever experienced. Ashley and I met through mutual friends and we hit it off immediately. She was fun and energetic and always the center of attention at social gatherings. And while I'm more introverted and reserved, we seemed to balance each other out. And for the first year of our relationship, everything seemed pretty normal and healthy. Then about 6 months ago, Ashley started complaining about feeling tired all the time and having stomach pains, and she went to what she said were doctor's appointments to figure out what was wrong. And she'd come back from these appointments looking worried but not wanting to talk about it, saying the doctors were still running tests. After a few weeks of this, she sat me down one evening and told me with tears streaming down her face that she'd been diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. And she said the doctors had found a tumor and it had already spread to her lymph nodes, and she was going to need aggressive chemotherapy and possibly surgery. I was absolutely devastated and terrified. My mom had died from cancer when I was in college, so this diagnosis hit me especially hard, and I immediately went into supportive partner mode, telling Ashley I'd be there for every appointment and every treatment, and we'd fight this together. She said she didn't want to make a big deal about it, and she wanted to keep it private at first until she figured out her treatment plan. And I respected that, even though I wanted to tell my family and friends what was happening because I needed support too. But she said she'd let me know when she was ready to go public with the diagnosis. Over the next few weeks, Ashley started what she said was her first round of chemotherapy, and she'd leave for the hospital early in the morning and come back in the evening looking exhausted and sick. And she started experiencing what appeared to be side effects like nausea and fatigue and losing her appetite. I took time off work to drive her to treatments, even though she insisted she could go alone. But she'd always have an excuse for why I couldn't come into the actual treatment room, saying the hospital had strict policies about visitors, or that she wanted to do this part alone to maintain some independence. About a month into her supposed treatment, Ashley came home one day and said she'd made a decision to shave her head because her hair was starting to fall out in clumps, and she wanted to control the process rather than watch it happen gradually. And I sat with her in the bathroom while she shaved her head and we both cried. And seeing her bald made the cancer feel so real and terrifying. She started wearing headscarves and beanies, and she'd post occasional updates on social media about her cancer journey without giving too many details, and the response was overwhelming with hundreds of people commenting with support and prayers and offering to help in any way they could. Ashley's friends organized a fundraiser to help with her medical expenses since she said her insurance wasn't covering everything, and they raised almost $15,000 through a GoFundMe and various benefit events. And I contributed what I could and helped promote the fundraiser because I wanted to support her in every way possible. She started this whole Instagram account documenting her cancer journey with inspirational quotes and photos of her in the hospital, though I noticed the photos were always of her in waiting rooms or hallways and never actually in a treatment room or with any medical equipment visible. But I didn't think much of it at the time because I figured she was just being private about the more invasive medical stuff. Ashley's entire personality seemed to shift during this time. She became even more focused on social media and how many likes and comments she was getting, and she'd get upset if her cancer update post didn't get enough engagement, which I thought was weird. But I chalked it up to her needing validation during a difficult time. I started noticing some inconsistencies, though. Like she'd say she had treatment on Tuesday, but then I'd see she'd been tagged in Instagram posts at a restaurant on Tuesday afternoon, or she'd claim she was too sick to go to a work event with me, but then I'd see she'd gone shopping with friends that same day. When I gently asked her about these inconsistencies, she'd get defensive and say I was policing her cancer experience, that she was allowed to have good days and bad days, and I'd feel guilty for questioning her and back off. About 3 months into this whole situation, I needed to add Ashley to my health insurance, and I asked her for her doctor's information so I could coordinate her care under my plan, and she got really weird about it, saying she didn't want to switch doctors mid-treatment and she'd handle her own insurance. And when I pressed the issue, saying it would save her thousands of dollars, she got angry and accused me of trying to control her medical decisions. That was the first time I really felt like something was off. Because why would someone refuse better health insurance when they're supposedly undergoing expensive cancer treatment? But I tried to push down my suspicions because I didn't want to be the person who doubted their girlfriend's cancer diagnosis. Then one day I came home from work early because I wasn't feeling well, and I found Ashley in the bedroom putting on a bald cap. And when she saw me, she startled and quickly put on a beanie. But I'd seen the bald cap, and I'd seen that underneath it she had her full head of hair that had been growing back. I asked her what was going on and why she had all her hair if she was supposed to be going through chemo, and she started crying and said she'd been wearing a wig that must have come off, but I told her to stop lying because I saw the bald cap and her real hair underneath, and she completely broke down and admitted that she didn't have cancer. I stood there in complete shock as Ashley confessed that she'd made up the entire thing. There was no diagnosis, no chemotherapy, no tumor. She'd been faking all of it for the past 4 months, and when I asked her why, she said she didn't know. She just wanted attention and support, and she liked how people treated her when they thought she was sick. And once she started the lie, she didn't know how to stop it. I was so angry I couldn't even form words. I thought about my mom who'd actually died from cancer. I thought about the $15,000 people had donated to Ashley's fake medical expenses. I thought about all the emotional energy I'd put into supporting her through this fake illness, and I told her to get out of my apartment immediately. Ashley begged me not to tell anyone and said she'd figure out a way to make it right. She'd say she'd been misdiagnosed, or that the cancer had gone into spontaneous remission, and I told her no. She was going to tell everyone the truth and return all the money people had donated, and she started panicking, saying that would ruin her life. I told her she should have thought about that before she faked cancer for attention, and I gave her 1 hour to pack her stuff and leave, or I was calling the police because I was pretty sure what she'd done with the GoFundMe was fraud. Ashley left crying and begging me to reconsider exposing her, and once she was gone, I just sat in my empty apartment trying to process what had just happened and feeling like the biggest idiot in the world for not seeing through her lies earlier. I called my best friend and told him everything, and he was just as shocked as I was, and he helped me figure out what to do next because I knew I couldn't let Ashley get away with scamming all those people out of money. But I also felt weird about being the one to expose her. I decided to reach out to the friend who'd organized the GoFundMe, and I told her what I'd discovered, and she was devastated and furious, and said we needed to tell everyone immediately and try to get the money returned. And I agreed, and we put together a message explaining that Ashley had been lying about having cancer and that everyone who donated should request refunds through GoFundMe. The fallout was immediate and massive. Ashley's social media accounts were flooded with angry comments from people who'd supported her, and some people were calling her every name in the book, while others were saying they didn't believe it and thought I was lying out of spite from a bad breakup. Ashley posted this long apology on Instagram saying she'd been struggling with mental health issues and had made terrible decisions and she was deeply sorry, but she never actually admitted to faking the cancer outright. She kept it vague, saying she'd exaggerated her illness, which made people even angrier because she couldn't even own up to the full extent of her lies. The GoFundMe was shut down, and refunds were processed for people who donated through that platform, but there had been cash donations at various benefit events that couldn't be returned because Ashley had already spent the money, and when people demanded she pay it back, she said she didn't have it and couldn't afford to return it, which led to multiple people threatening legal action. I found out from mutual friends that Ashley's family was horrified when they learned the truth. Apparently, they'd believed her cancer story too, and they'd been supporting her emotionally and financially, and her parents were so embarrassed and angry that they basically disowned her and told her she needed to get professional help. Ashley tried to contact me multiple times over the following weeks, sometimes apologizing and sometimes getting angry and blaming me for ruining her life by exposing her, and I blocked her on everything because I couldn't deal with her manipulation anymore, and I needed to focus on my own healing from this betrayal. The psychological damage from this situation has been really hard to work through because how do you trust anyone again after someone fakes cancer to manipulate you? And I've been in therapy trying to process not just the lying, but the fact that she used my mom's death from cancer as a way to make her lies more believable and get more sympathy from me. My therapist has helped me understand that Ashley likely has some serious personality disorders, and that what she did wasn't about me, it was about her desperate need for attention and validation. But that doesn't make it hurt any less, or make me feel any less stupid for believing her. I've also had to deal with some people in our friend group who think I should have handled it differently, or who feel bad for Ashley, saying she obviously has mental health issues and needs help rather than public shaming, and I've had to cut those people out because anyone who can excuse faking cancer doesn't have their moral compass pointing in the right direction. The legal situation is still ongoing. Several people who made large donations that can't be refunded through GoFundMe have gotten lawyers involved and are suing Ashley for fraud, and I've been contacted by their lawyers to give statements about what I witnessed and what Ashley confessed to me. Ashley apparently tried to claim at one point that she really did believe she had cancer, and that she'd been receiving treatment from a holistic doctor who'd since disappeared, which was obviously another lie, but she was desperate to avoid legal consequences, and the lawyers pretty much destroyed that story by pointing out all the deliberate deception like the bald cap and the fake hospital photos. I heard through the grapevine that Ashley lost her job once her employer found out about the cancer fraud, and she's had to move back in with a relative in another state because she's been essentially run out of town by the community backlash. And while part of me feels like that's exactly what she deserves, another part of me feels sad that someone would be so broken inside that they'd do something this destructive. The friend who organized the GoFundMe has been beating herself up about not seeing the signs earlier, and I've tried to reassure her that Ashley was very convincing and had answers for everything. But she still feels responsible for facilitating the fraud, even though she was a victim of Ashley's lies just like everyone else. I've also connected with other people online who've been through similar situations with loved ones faking illnesses, and it's been somewhat comforting to know I'm not alone in experiencing this kind of betrayal, though it's also disturbing how common this type of scam apparently is. Looking back, there were definitely red flags I missed or dismissed, like how Ashley always wanted to go to medical appointments alone, or how she never had any actual medical documentation to show me, or how her symptoms seemed to come and go conveniently based on what she wanted to do, but I was so focused on being supportive and not wanting to be the boyfriend who doubted his girlfriend's cancer that I ignored my gut instincts. The experience has fundamentally changed how I approach relationships and trust. I'm much more skeptical now, and I find myself looking for inconsistencies in people's stories even when I don't want to. And I hate that Ashley's lies have made me this suspicious and guarded person. I've started dating again very casually, but I find it hard to open up to anyone new because I'm constantly worried about being manipulated or lied to again. And my therapist says that's a normal trauma response, but I need to work on not letting Ashley's actions ruin my ability to connect with honest people. The whole situation has also made me much more aware of the real cancer patients and families who are fighting actual battles, and how harmful it is when people like Ashley fake illnesses, because it makes people more skeptical of legitimate cases and can affect real patients' ability to get support. I've volunteered with a couple cancer support organizations since this happened as a way to honor my mom's memory and to do something positive after being part of Ashley's fraud story, and it's been healing to support people who are going through what my mom went through and what Ashley pretended to go through. 6 months later, I'm doing better, but I'm still angry about what happened. Angry at Ashley for the lies and the manipulation, angry at myself for not seeing through it sooner, and angry that she's essentially gotten away with it because while she's facing some legal consequences and social exile, it's nowhere near proportional to the damage she caused. I hope Ashley gets real help for whatever psychological issues led her to do this. Not because I have any sympathy for her, but because I don't want her to do this to anyone else. But based on her non-apology and continued deflection of responsibility, I'm not optimistic that she's capable of real change. So that's my story about dating someone who faked cancer for attention, and how discovering that lie completely destroyed any trust I had in relationships. And if you've made it this far, I really appreciate you listening because this has been one of the hardest things I've ever had to talk about. Here's what I want to know from you. Have you ever known someone who faked an illness or major life event for attention, And how did you handle it when you found out the truth? Drop your experience in the comments because I think these stories need to be shared so people can recognize the warning signs. And if you found this story as shocking as I still find it, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and hit that like button because your support means everything. Thanks for watching and take care of yourselves.